everybody who's spoken up about it decried as far right. Where exactly are you allowed a voice on this?
Yes,
Where?
exactly.
If there had been a far-right crowd, an actually far-right crowd, let's say, of British National Party, to again summon up that long-dead spectre of the past. Liberalism, our political liberalism is the one thing that we have going for us, or that our diversity is actually our essence as a country. And that's just not true.
Douglas Murray dives straight into the heart of a community on the brink, where mass migration collides with skyrocketing child poverty and a haunting legacy of grooming gangs. As foreign agendas overshadow local crises, Murray digs deeper, unraveling Rochdale's cry for help and the fierce controversy surrounding Rishi Sunak's latest firestorm of a speech. With his unflinching eye, Murray exposes the cracks in Britain's foundation, daring to ask, how much longer can Westminster ignore the breakdown?
We're only talking about Islamist extremism now after the rise of what we're seeing on our streets. Don't forget also far-right extremism, because Rishi seems just as concerned about that, does he not? Even though I've not really seen that being a particular issue on our streets every other Saturday, or indeed with, what is going on in terms of threats to Parliament. But there we are. That's up to him. But this all comes, of course, after George Galloway was elected as the new MP for Rochdale, but then immediately said this was for Gaza. All goes back to what my last guest went through, Noah, on October the 7th. How did we get here, Douglas?
Well, it's several things, Julia, as you know. I mean, the first is obviously, and in the case of a parliamentary seat like Rochdale, it's a result of mass migration for many years and a total failure to integrate populations. As I've said repeatedly for a very long time now, if you import the world's people, you also import the world's problems. And, there's a reason why it wasn't just Galloway, but the Labour candidate for Rochdale, who of course had to pull out, or was dumped eventually by the Labour Party for making anti-Semitic comments. It's no coincidence. It isn't a coincidence that there was a sort of cluster of people who pander to certain bigotries in that seat. That's what a significant number of people in that voting district want.
Yeah.
And Galloway is an opportunist, of course, but he was giving the local electorate, or part of the local electorate, what they want.
Yeah.
If you were an ordinary citizen who cared about unemployment, poverty, opportunity, and much more in that area, you didn't really get a say. You didn't get anyone to vote for in this election.
And it was interesting, the leaflets.
This discussion brings to light some key issues surrounding the complexities of immigration, diversity, and political representation. It's crucial to address the legitimate concerns of communities that feel left behind, unheard, or marginalized, especially as they grapple with rapid social and cultural changes. However, in doing so, we must also recognize and value the broad contributions that newcomers bring to society, contributions that enrich the fabric of our nation in countless ways. The conversation also highlights an uncomfortable truth. Bigotry is not confined to any one group or ideology, but can be found across the political spectrum. This suggests the need for a more comprehensive, nuanced approach to tackling discrimination in all its forms. Instead of solely focusing on the divisions between communities, we must look for opportunities to engage in meaningful dialogue, create spaces for mutual understanding, and find solutions that address concerns on all sides.
It's all connected, though, Julia. I mean, Rochdale, as most people watching will know, is the scene of one of the most appalling rape gang scandals in modern Britain. And there's an interesting conundrum that throws itself up here, which is what happens if you are a voter in Rochdale who has seen this happen in your neighborhood, who knows it happening, who probably knows of victims, and you'd like to get your voice heard. Well, here are the options. You can make your voice heard in the way that most of us can in a democracy, which is to speak up, make your voice heard by, going out on the streets or attending a demonstration or something. But no. If you did that, you would be decried as a member of the far right immediately. Because you're not allowed to have a voice on matters like that if you happen to be particularly white and working class, let alone a white working class male, which it seems is the least pleasant thing to be in the eyes of much of the commentariat in the UK. You're not meant to have a voice. But let's say instead of turning out on the streets or making your voice heard in opposition to rape gangs, then you waited patiently to exercise your vote in the democratic process. Well, then you have a bunch of people ranting about the Jews and friends of Saddam Hussein and Bashar al-Assad all showing up and again pandering to the local Muslim vote. And you don't really have a say then either.
Yeah.
So when Rishi Sunak and others play this game of, it's about Islamists, but also the far right. Yeah, there are some far right people in the UK, and they are completely on the fringes, and they're disliked by everybody, and they don't have any place in our democracy. They're not in Parliament. They don't get voted into Parliament. Rishi Sunak had to summon up the spectre of the former head of the British National Party, Nick Griffin, who's had absolutely no presence in public life for 13 or 14 years now, had to summon him up like a ghoul as an example of the far right. But I go back to this point. What if you're just a concerned voter in Rochdale who has seen the Muslim rape gangs in your area, who has seen all of the equivocation of the political class, and has seen everybody who's spoken up about it decried as far right? Where exactly are you allowed a voice on this?
Yes,
Where?
exactly.
While it's undeniably important to acknowledge and address the concerns of marginalized groups and working-class citizens, it's equally crucial to recognize how the exploitation of sensitive topics can often derail the conversation and shift attention away from more meaningful, solution-oriented dialogue. By sensationalizing issues like the Rochdale scandal or labeling certain groups as far right, we run the risk of oversimplifying complex societal challenges. Such framings reduce multifaceted problems into a binary of victim versus villain, which often overlooks the broader, more nuanced realities at play. Mainstream political figures and movements need to find ways to truly engage with the concerns of everyday citizens, not through fear-mongering or rhetoric, but by addressing the underlying issues that affect people's lives. It's only by moving beyond simplistic narratives and engaging with the complexities of society that we can hope to find solutions that unite rather than divide, and that tackle the real issues at hand.
The British government has played this very cynical game for many years now, and again, I come back to this point. If there had been a far right crowd, an actually far right crowd, let's say of British National Party, to again summon up that long dead spectre of the past, if there had been a British National Party demonstration outside the House of Commons the other week, it's not like you or I or anyone else we know would have any problem condemning that either. It's very simple. We wouldn't want and we don't like thugs of any kind intimidating our representatives, let alone threatening them. We find that perfectly easy. And if there was such a group, you and I and others wouldn't have a problem with saying we condemn this. We wouldn't have to summon up other groups to sort of allow us to condemn it. We just condemn it.
Well, okay, so why?
So what is?
Well, why are
the
they so
problem
afraid?
here?
Focusing on outdated examples like the BNP in today's political landscape is not only a diversion, but a failure to engage with the reality of current societal issues. While the far-right group no longer holds any significant political power or influence, the persistent obsession with their legacy serves to overshadow more pressing and contemporary challenges. Using historical boogeymen to craft a narrative of fear and division might once have served a purpose, but now it feels like a crutch, an easy way to manufacture outrage instead of dealing with the complex problems at hand. By simplifying today's challenges into rehashed stories of the past, we risk ignoring the broader issues of social inequality, the fragmentation of political discourse, and the genuine concerns of communities who feel disconnected from mainstream politics. Rather than continuing to drag up these old fears, the focus should be on fostering a conversation that acknowledges the realities of today.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, this is just so. All of this is just so past its sell-by date. I mean, it's almost 15 years now since Prime Minister Sarkozy, Angela Merkel, and David Cameron all said that multiculturalism had failed. And so this is an old argument. This argument has been effectively won, i.e. lost, years ago. And here we still are in the UK rabbiting on about it. And why? The fact is that some diversity is good for a society, but there must be some point at which it no longer is. And I would say that the point at which it no longer is where you have communities of people who hold on to the prejudices that they brought from their country of origin and then start to push it into our own political system. Worst of all is when that happens in a threatening manner, as it does with sections of the Muslim communities in this country, where effectively MPs and the Speaker and the Prime Minister and everyone else are intimidated from identifying the problem. You know, I'm so fed up of hearing people saying things that, you know, would have been fine 20 years ago, but are just way out of date now. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And Rishi Sunak's answer is, well, we have record high migration, but we'll talk about what a great liberal country we are. No, that just doesn't do it. A lot of people don't want to integrate in Britain, and we should have realized that by now. They don't want to be part of Britain. And what's more, when Rishi Sunak and others talk about this country, they very often talk about it as if it's just, you know, our liberalism, our political liberalism is the one thing that we have going for us, or that our diversity is actually our essence as a country. And that's just not true. Britain was not very diverse until about 60 years ago, and was certainly nothing like what it is now until the last few decades, principally since the Labour election of 1997. This is a country, Great Britain, with an extraordinarily long and rich history, all of which we now push aside, all of which we ignore, and we sell ourselves simply as this uber-liberal sort of landing spot for the world. And I don't think that passes muster.
When we speak about immigration and integration, we're often stuck in a mindset that only focuses on how newcomers must assimilate, ignoring the mutual benefits of a dynamic two-way exchange. It's not just about one culture adapting to another. It's about learning, evolving, and enriching the collective experience. The core issue isn't about preserving an idealized monochrome past, but recognizing that the strength of any nation lies in its ability to absorb and celebrate diversity while maintaining shared values. Instead of casting those with different backgrounds as a threat, we should focus on fostering inclusion and understanding. The narrative of division only works if we ignore the rich history of integration and collaboration that has shaped societies across the globe. By focusing on dialogue and creating policies that support mutual respect, integration can be a process that benefits everyone involved. The real challenge is to rethink integration as a shared journey, not a one-sided demand.
Well, they're all, Labour, Conservative, they're all totally incapable of speaking to the public. They're incapable of speaking to our concerns. Rishi Sunak's speech was a good example. Any speech by any Labour MP is a very good example. Look at Jess Phillips last week, talking about how wonderful Birmingham is and how there are no problems in her area and how the marchers and the Palestinian protesters weren't any problem. You know, she should look, by the way, to her constituency. you should look to Birmingham and the hate preachers preaching anti-Semitism in the mosques in Birmingham, which there's plenty of video of, and she could find it if she was curious about it. But because all of these parties have ducked all these issues, of course they leave it open, and they also pander to it. As I say, there's a reason why the Labour Party selected and then deselected somebody who was pandering to anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It was because he was pandering to a voter base in Rochdale that wants anti-Semites and wants to vote for them. If the best that Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer and co can do in response to that is to start talking about fundamental British values, then I'm sorry, we've lost already. It has to be said, one other thing quickly, if I may.
Very
George
quickly,
Galloway
yeah.
is a great political opportunist. I just hope that all the Muslims who voted for him are pleased that they voted for somebody who said the most slathering and slavish things about Saddam Hussein and Bashar al-Assad, two men who've killed more Muslims in recent decades than anyone else in the world. So those Muslim voters in Rochdale can feel proud of themselves. Yeah, they're really good Muslims. They're great brothers, great ummah. Yeah, good work, guys.
At the heart of this conversation lies a clash of perspectives, one that often pits the value of inclusivity against the fear of cultural erosion. The narrative that newcomers are a threat to societal stability ignores the countless ways in which immigrants enrich the very fabric of a nation. Instead, some choose to magnify the negative stories, which creates a skewed picture of reality. At the same time, political figures are often caught in the crossfire, accused of pandering to certain groups for political leverage. This raises a deeper question. Are politicians truly addressing the root causes of these societal divides, or are they merely responding to the loudest voices in the room? In this polarized atmosphere, it's all too easy for meaningful discourse to get drowned out by sound bites and outrage. The key to addressing these challenges lies in fostering understanding, recognizing both the benefits and complexities of diversity, and working towards solutions that genuinely unite rather than divide. This conversation sheds light on the tangled web of immigration, diversity, and political representation, where the challenge isn't just about addressing fears, but unraveling the complexities beneath them. It's easy to latch onto outdated narratives or sensationalize threats, but doing so only obscures the real issues at play. To move forward, we need to shift the focus from division to dialogue, recognizing the immense value newcomers bring while also listening to the concerns of those feeling left behind. In a world where polarization runs rampant, the true path forward lies in embracing diversity as a strength, creating policies that unite rather than divide, and fostering understanding that leads to meaningful solutions for all.